Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Harvest of summer crops is underway across parts of Oklahoma despite some challenges this growing season. For an update, here's Extension Cropping System Specialist Josh Lofton.
We're in a decent spot. We're kind of getting towards the end of that year, and we always say that we don't really know how good things really are until we get the combines through the field. And we're starting to. Some of our corn crop is well on its way out of the field. Some of our sorghum crop is well on its way out of the field. So we're starting to get numbers come in. From what I've heard, corn has been reasonable to really good. Some of the sorghum is a little mixed bag. We've had some really good sorghum get pulled out. We've had some sorghum that had a lot of issues with those early rainy periods. So it's kind of been a mixed bag right now. We're still waiting for a bulk majority of it to get out of the field, but at least from what we see so far, it's going to be an okay year. Not a great year, not what we were hoping with all that rain at the start, but our rooting system of our summer crops, which is typically very large because of how wet we were very, very shallow. And what we see here is a lot of signs of how drought stressed some of our crops were. So we grabbed this soybean plant. It's been off the vine for a little bit, so it's a little drier than normal, but we can see some of these pods that have kind of almost fully aborted themselves. And these fully aborted pods are just due to the fact that it ran out of steam during that dry period, didn't have enough resources to carry on. For sorghum, on the other hand, we have a little bit different of an issue. It's a little bit easier to see some of the wider ranges of drought stress in sorghum sometimes. This was two heads that were collected in relatively short distance, maybe about 3 or 5 feet in the field away from each other. We see a nice beautiful head here, you know, fully well developed, got some nice seed set. Once again, it wasn't that dry, it wasn't really that hot, but we just didn't have any roots to support it is really the bigger issue.
As we go through this fall calving season, or any calving season for that matter, any rancher that's been in the business for any period of time obviously will find a cow or a heifer that needs some assistance at calving time. And once they've got that calf delivered and that cow and calf back up and good and healthy, the question will go through his mind, well, what's the chances that she's going to have calving difficulty again next year if I keep her around? Well, there is some data in the scientific literature that helps us answer that question to a certain degree. Colorado State University back in the 70s looked at lifetime studies of beef cows. They took a good hard look at 2-year-olds that had calving difficulty in that first calving season, and then watched to see what percentage of them had calving difficulty the following year, and then compared them to their counterparts that calved unassisted as 2-year-olds to see how well they did the following year. And what they found was a small difference. Those that had calving difficulty as 2-year-olds, about 11.7% had calving difficulty the following year as a 3-year-old. In the case of those that did not have a problem as 2-year-olds, 7.2% of those had calving difficulty as 3-year-olds. And so there was a small, but I think we want to emphasize small difference in calving difficulty. What they also found, however, was quite a little bit of difference in terms of productivity over that 2-year span. Those heifers that had calving difficulty that first year then came back into heat later, and their calves the following year were born about 13 days later than their counterparts that didn't have calving problems. That meant that those calves weaned over 40 pounds lighter at weaning time. Plus, there was a difference in rebreeding percentage. Those that had calving difficulties, 2-year-olds, rebred at a lower percentage than did those that did not have calving difficulty. So it becomes kind of an interesting decision. I think it might boil down to how much you want to keep that particular cow or heifer that had calving difficulty this year. Is she look like one that's going to really develop into a good cow that's going to raise good calves, then I'd probably take the chance and keep her around. If there's other reasons, perhaps she's a little bit wild, a little bit crazy, and you're looking for another excuse to get rid of her. If she had calving difficulty this year, that might just add up to one that goes ahead and makes your cull list this year. The repeatability is not real high, but we want to remember that the overall productivity those first 2 years could be considerably lower if she has calving difficulty this year. The other part of this story is I think it puts increased emphasis again on proper heifer development, making sure they're in that body condition score of 5, 5.5 at calving time and bred to calving ease bulls, so that we have the less possibility of having calving difficulty just due to our management as we grow these heifers and get them ready for their first calving season. We hope that helps you make that decision if you run into that particular question yourself, and we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Last Thursday, the WASDE report came out, and Kim, last time the report came out, there were some numbers in there that some corn producers didn't quite believe. Let's start off with wheat. How are things looking this time?
Well, I think the numbers are more believable, especially for wheat. They didn't change the U.S. Production or use numbers at all. They did lower the average annual price from $5 to $4.80. And if you'll remember, right now the Oklahoma price is about $1 or a good dollar underneath that projected average annual price, and since June 1 has averaged about $4.15. Now, if you look at the world wheat situation, they increased world ending stocks just a little bit to 10.5 billion bushels. They lowered Russian production down to 2,660 million bushels. Now, what's ironic about that is on Wednesday, Russia released an estimate and increased their production to 2.75 billion bushels, which is about where we were the USDA was last month. And so, who's right, Russia or the USDA there? Argentina, no changes. It's dry there, maybe slightly lower, but it's probably a good estimate. They lowered Australia to 698 million bushels, down from 772. Of course, they've been extremely dry all year.
Let's look at the corn numbers. A lot of the corn's being harvested across Oklahoma and the southern part of the country. Where are we with those numbers?
Well, if you look at corn production, and that was where the big discrepancy was last month, you know, it's 13.9 billion bushels. USDA essentially lowered it to 13.8 billion. The pre-release estimate for that was 13,670 million bushels. So USDA still above the analyst projections, but they're at least closer. You notice USDA came down a little bit and the analysts came up quite a bit.
Where are we at with cotton and soybeans?
Well, you look at soybeans, you know, the USDA, the soybean production at 3.63 billion bushels. The analysts were at 3.57, essentially 3.6 billion bushels, very close together there. Cotton production, the world, 125.6 million bales. The production, you know, from last month, 124, so slightly higher on that. U.S., they lowered our production from 22.5 billion to down to 21.9. So, and they lowered the average cotton price from 60 cents to 58 cents. So overall, we got a neutral to slightly bullish report out Thursday.
So with all of that, is there any other news or takeaways Oklahoma producers should be thinking about?
Well, I think the big news is that Mexican production was increased and their consumption was decreased. And of course, Mexico and Japan are number 1 and number 2 importers of wheat, and so that possibly less exports to Russia, and we may see, not to Russia, but to Mexico. We may see that next month. And the other news is Argentina's dry, so their production may be slightly lower in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University. And now here's Rodney Jones with information on the upcoming Rural Economic Outlook Conference.
We've got our annual Rural Economic Outlook Conference that we host every year going on. This annual conference gives everybody kind of an annual update, both from folks here in our department and here on campus at Oklahoma State University, and we always have some good outside speakers that come in and give us a really good overview of what's going on in the rural economy, and that's really important to Oklahoma. Not only for our farm and ranch community, that's obviously an important part of our rural economy, and it'll be over here in the Alumni Center right here on the OSU campus. You can find information about the Rural Economic Outlook Conference right off of our Ag Econ website. The registration fee will be $50 if people get it in before October the 2nd. If they're a walk-in, it's going to be $75. Really, anyone who's interested in what's going on in the rural economy in the Oklahoma region, we'd love to have you.
Switching gears to the Farm Bill now, and a word from the Farm Service Agency.
Farm Bill was passed last December, and a lot of the programs have been being prepared, and now they are out and ready for farmers to come into the county offices and sign up in those programs. 2019 and 2020 ARC PLC enrollment began on September the 3rd and runs through March 15th for 2019. For 2020, it begins on October the 7th and runs through June the 30th. Producers will need to come in and elect a program, either ARC IC, which is ARC Individual, or ARC County, or PLC. That needs to be done by the March 15th deadline of 2020, and that'll be a 2019 election. OSU Extension will provide education material. They'll have some meetings around the state that will discuss ARC PLC, and they'll also have a decision tool, a Farm Bill decision tool, that if producers can use their own personal information, load that into the decision tool and be able to help them determine maybe which program is better for them, ARC or PLC.
Amy Hagerman, our OSU Extension Ag Policy Specialist, joins us now. Amy, you and the team are gearing up for those statewide meetings that JD mentioned.
Absolutely. We're really excited to be partnering with USDA to bring this series of 14 meetings across the state. And we've scattered these meetings out all across the state. So while we may not have one in every county, hopefully every producer has one near them. And because we've scattered them out across time, hopefully they're at times that work for people as well.
And you strategically did that to kind of give people a little breathing room with planting fall crops and harvesting summer crops. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we realize this is a really busy time of year. We're trying to get wheat in the ground. We're going to be trying to get crops off the ground later on this fall. So we wanted to make sure that these meetings were scattered out across time. They're from late September to late November. So hopefully there's a window with a meeting in there that will fit for anybody where they can get off the tractor and come on in and learn some more about these Farm Bill programs. Also, we have the flexibility to do that because of those timelines for when these election decisions are going to be made, like JD talked about.
And it really is a process. It's getting the information, looking at the decision tools, just kind of letting it marinate, if you will.
Absolutely, and we're going to try to hit on all those pieces in these educational meetings. They're going to get a chance to hear from USDA about what are the big changes and what are the pieces of information they'll need to have on file with their county office before they go in, the crop reports they need to have in place, the paperwork that they'll need to have with them in order to make these decisions. But then also we're going to have some of our area ag economists come in and talk about the market conditions, because that's really important for whether the price loss coverage or the revenue coverage is going to be better for producers in the 19 and 20 crop years. And let's not forget that we've got a lot more flexibility in this Farm Bill than the last one. They're just electing for their 19 and their 20 year, then they're going to have the opportunity, if market conditions change, to change that program that they're electing to in the 21, 22, and 23 crop years. So lots of flexibility, lots of decisions.
Good to know that we have you guys.
Absolutely.
And of course there'll be more information in the weeks and months ahead.
Absolutely. This is a busy time. The implementation is fully underway, so there will be a lot of information coming out.
Okay, well, we'll see you back on SUNUP again soon.
Absolutely.
And for a link to the website that Amy mentioned, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Well, it's almost the perfect time to start planting alfalfa. And Alex, what are some things that producers need to think about when it comes to planting?
So the first thing that producers need to check on their field is alfalfa autotoxicity. That goes to fields that previously had alfalfa in the last 2 years. Old alfalfa stands can produce some substances that can inhibit the seedling of new alfalfas coming. We have a fact sheet, alfalfa autotoxicity, the reason for rotate alfalfa fields. I highly recommend that producers check that fact sheet. In the end of the fact sheet, we have a table where they can access the risk of alfalfa autotoxicity in their own fields. Then the second thing to check is soil fertility. Does the soil has a good pH, P and K?
Now, when it comes to soil preparation, is there anything that producers need to think about in that regard?
Yes, we need to keep in mind that alfalfa seed is a very tiny and small seed, so that's supposed to be in the very top of the soil. So when we prepare the soil seeding bed, what we need to have is a very firm seed bedding. So it's supposed to be firm at a point that where we step with our boot, that bedding cannot sink more than 1/4 of an inch. If it sinks like 1/2 inch or 1 inch, you need to firm a little more.
Well, you mentioned seeds, so what are some, when it comes to selecting varieties, what should producers think about in that area?
So there is no one fits all here. We need to select a variety that is specific for each area. But there are some things that must have in that seed as traits. First, winter hardness and fall dormance. When you talk about Oklahoma, the rate for winter hardness is supposed to be 3 or 4 and fall dormance 4 to 5. Why? Because those are the varieties that can survive during our winter and start to grow properly during spring and stop growing properly during the fall. So those are the two main things I need to think. After, check on your area, which are the most common diseases and pests that you have, and select a variety that are resistant to those pests and disease. The National Alfalfa and Forage Alliance every year release the alfalfa variety ratings, and there they describe which varieties are resistant to different diseases and pests. I think that that's a very good material to check when selecting a variety. And finally, yield potential, and that can just be done and selected properly when we have alfalfa variety trials around the state close to your area to select.
All right, thanks, Alex. If you'd like some more information on what Alex just talked about, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Wes Lee with your weekly Mesonet weather report. Temperatures have been on the hot side for the last few weeks, even after the high-pressure heat dome moved its bullseye off of Oklahoma. On September the 10th, daily highs were mostly in the 90s statewide. While this temperature is not nearly as brutal as the hundreds we had in August, it is well above normal for this time of year. This long-term average graph shows that statewide average high temperatures indicated by the blue field should have averaged around 86 degrees on the 10th. However, we experienced an actual statewide high shown by the dark line of over 94. As expected, this heat also has our soil temperatures averaging a little higher than normal as well. The blue field indicates an average 4-inch soil temperature under sod should have been around 76 on the 10th, but the red line shows it was running 80 degrees. This will have implications for certain wheat varieties to farmers wanting to plant early. Early on, we were worried about getting enough heat to mature our sun-loving plants like cotton. That turned out not being an issue when you look at our current degree days chart. At these 5 locations across the state, the degree days for cotton are at or near the 5-year average. Gary is up next discussing next week's forecast.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, I'm afraid summer is like the Energizer Bunny. It just keeps on going and going and going. Unfortunately, so was the drought in parts of the state. Let's get straight to the new drought monitor map and see what we have. Well, the good news is the drought overall didn't increase too much. It's still confined in the southern parts of the state, really in southwestern Oklahoma and also southeastern Oklahoma. We did see a bit of an increase in that extreme drought in southwestern Oklahoma. They definitely need rain down in that area. We didn't really see an increase in the moderate drought too much, just over across southeastern Oklahoma in McCurtain County, up into LaFleur County. So again, that's an area also that needs some pretty good rains if we're going to stop this drought in its tracks down in those areas. Well, the answer always is pretty obvious, and it's just simply a lack of rainfall. This is the 30-day rainfall from the Oklahoma Mesonet. We see southwestern Oklahoma and southeastern Oklahoma, extremely low rainfall amounts for this time of the year, even though we're in the end of summer, into the early part of fall. So only 3/10 of an inch down in far southeast Oklahoma, and less than an inch in some parts of southwest Oklahoma. And we also have lower areas of rainfall across western Oklahoma, and also out in the panhandle up into parts of central Oklahoma. Now, one of our fixes with this would simply be lots of rain. We also could use some cooler weather, because that would stop the evaporation rates, also cut down on some of that vegetation growth. But unfortunately, as we look into next week, the Climate Prediction Center shows increased odds of above normal temperatures across the entire state. So with that extended outlook, we see a continuation of summer, and I'm afraid a continuation of drought without some drastic rainfall changes across southwestern and southeastern Oklahoma. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Finally, today we head to Pottawatomie County, where a rural school and community are embracing a centuries-old Oklahoma institution. Here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare.
Look how much splinters I got. We got some in the bottom right here.
So today we are building scarecrows to enter into the county fair, and we're also painting kindness rocks for the garden.
South Rock Creek 4-H Club meetings are usually wonderfully hectic. Add county fair season into the mix, and the hectic meter jumps up a few notches.
We need to put the button.
For club leader Linda Goodson, this is how it should be.
So, do you want to water it when we get home?
We'll water it here. About twice a month we have gardening and fun games in the garden. And then we do crafts and we do robots and we plant.
Weather permitting, the garden is the headquarters for the 4-H Club. Today's meeting is all about the scarecrow, an effigy that's supposed to resemble someone in particular.
It's good enough. Usually men have like things in their pockets.
So it's supposed to be, we have a principal, Coach Rosser, and we decided that we should make something that kind of looks like him. So we have a scarecrow that's dedicated to him.
Does it look like him?
No.
Garden projects and county fair scarecrows seem like a long-standing tradition for South Rock Creek 4-H'ers. It's not. The garden and the club are brand new.
4-H is countywide. We had clubs at Bethel and at Tecumseh, but we did not have a club here at this school. My grandchildren decided that they wanted to start showing sheep, and so we needed a club to join. And we also are going to talk about...
last year, Linda started one. South Rock Creek is a rural school and community, so she didn't have high expectations for a big turnout.
The very first meeting that I had 35 kids that signed up. I was totally overwhelmed. I thought I'd have my grandchildren's very best friends and we'd have 6 or 8. But it really told me that the parents really saw a need.
We were so excited because we saw some other friends at different schools have 4-H, and we were like, we want that too.
So you're jealous?
Yeah. We were jealous.
And the first order of business for the club, constructing a community garden.
It just kind of came to me. I love kids and I love gardening, and two of my passions, and they just needed to go together.
I knew that Linda had great ideas for the garden, but seeing it as a completed project is super impressive.
Sitting right next to the school, the garden isn't just for 4-H use only. Its main purpose is for community outreach.
We decided on the picnic tables so the teachers can bring their classrooms and classwork out into the garden.
Vegetables are even harvested and served in the cafeteria.
It's really refreshing as a 4-H educator to see kids really enjoying what 4-H is. There's project areas for everyone. It's not just for livestock, it's for science and technology with public speaking.
Not everybody's going to be an athlete, and everybody's going to have their own little niche of things that they can do. And you know, we offer a few things athletically here, but for a large number of our kids, there really wasn't something that they could get involved in.
A 4-H club is, in a way, much like a community garden. Its flourishing is determined by how much care, dedication, and teamwork is put into cultivating it. Attributes the South Rock Creek Club has, taught by the person who planted the seed in the first place.
Well, when Linda finds something that she has dedicated herself to want to do, she's going to, it doesn't matter how much time, how much energy, if she had to spend all of her own money to do it, she would do it.
I have such a wonderful parents group base, and I have a lot of young ones this year that signed up, and it's those moms that carry the torch after I move on.
In Pottawatomie County, I'm Curtis Harry.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.